Welcome to the world of science fiction where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The lad was silent except for the hum of failing machines. Dr. Lyra Vale slumped over her console, her silver-streaked dark hair tangled from hours of frustrated research. The numbers hadn't changed in weeks. Another dead end. Her people, the Crithians, were dying. Not from war, not from famine, but from something far crueler. Their own biology had betrayed them. A genetic decay had slithered into their reproductive code, rendering each generation weaker than the last. Lyra had spent years searching for a cure, but every treatment failed. The High Council's patience was thinning. A sharp chime broke her thoughts. "Enter," she muttered, not lifting her head. The door slid open, and her assistant, Tessa, rushed in, her violet eyes wide. "Scholar Vale, you need to see this." She shoved a datapad into Lyra's hands. Deep-range scanners picked up an anomaly. A ship. Human. Lyra's breath caught. Humans were rare in this sector. Curious, reckless, and most importantly, fertile. "Are they hailing us?" Tessa nodded. "They've received our broadcasts. Their captain wants to speak with you directly." Lyra's pulse quickened. She straightened her robes and activated the comm. The holographic image of a rugged human male flickered to life. He had sharp green eyes, a scar cutting through his stubble, and the weary confidence of someone who'd seen too much. "Captain Dren Marth of the SS Horizon," he said. "We intercepted your transmissions. Your people's plight. It's unlike anything we've seen." Lyra studied him. Humans were known for their adaptability. Their DNA was resilient, malleable. Could they be the key? "Why are you here, Captain?" "We have no resources to trade, no wealth to offer." Dren's gaze didn't waver. "We're explorers, and if what your data says is true, your species won't last another generation. I've got a ship, a crew, and a scientist who thinks she can help." Lyra's fingers tightened around the datapad. "You're proposing an alliance." "A lifeline," Dren corrected. "But we'll need full access to your genetic archives." "And you." She stiffened. "Me. You're their lead researcher, aren't you? If anyone can bridge human and Crithian biology, it's you." The weight of his words settled over her. This was reckless. Dangerous. Heresy, some would say. But what choice did they have? "Very well," Lyra said. "Prepare to dock. I'll inform the High Council." As the transmission ended, Tessa gripped her arm. "You can't trust them. Humans are unpredictable. What if they're our only chance?" Lyra interrupted softly. "I won't let our people fade into oblivion without a fight." The SS Horizon descended through the crimson-tinged atmosphere of Crithis, its thrusters humming as it settled onto the landing platform. Dr. Lyra Vale stood at the edge of the docking bay, her robes fluttering in the artificial wind. Beside her, High Scholar Yevra, the eldest of the Crithian geneticists, watched with a guarded expression. "You trust these humans," Yevra murmured, her voice like dry parchment. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She had spent the last 3 hours reviewing human biological data, specifically their reproductive resilience. Unlike Crithians, humans had evolved under chaotic conditions, their DNA riddled with redundancies and repair mechanisms. If we could harness that. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss. Captain Dren Marth stepped out first, his boots thudding against the metallic surface. Behind him, a woman in a fitted biosuit followed, her dark hair pulled into a tight braid. "Dr. Lyra Vale," Dren said, nodding. "This is Dr. Ilara Voss, our xenogeneticist." Ilara offered a small smile. "We've analyzed your data. Your fertility collapse isn't just genetic, it's epigenetic. Your DNA isn't degrading, it's shutting down." Lyra's breath caught. "You're saying our genes are still intact?" "Yes, but something is blocking their expression." Ilara tapped a device on her wrist, projecting a hologram of 2 DNA strands, one human, one Crithian. "Human cells have a failsafe. When stressed, they activate backup pathways. Yours don't. Yevra's eyes narrowed. And you believe human DNA can reactivate ours? Dren crossed his arms. We won't know until we try. The Nexus Chamber, the heart of Crithian science, was a place few outsiders had ever seen. The Nexus Chamber, a cavernous lab hidden beneath the capital city. Its walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, ancient machinery humming in harmony with the planet's energy fields. Lyra led them inside, her fingers brushing against the control console. This is where we attempted our last gene therapies. All failures. Ilara studied the chamber with awe. This tech is ancient. How does it even? It's not tech, Yevra interrupted. It's alive. The Nexus is a living organism, designed to reshape biology itself. Dren let out a low whistle. So you're saying this thing can merge DNA? Yes, Lyra said. But we've never tried it with a foreign species. Silence stretched between them. The implications were staggering and dangerous. Ilara exhaled sharply. We'd need a donor, a human volunteer. Dren's jaw tightened. He had known this was coming. You're asking me to donate? No, Lyra said quietly. We're asking you to bond. The ethical divide. Later, in the dim glow of the guest quarters, Dren paced. You want to splice my DNA into your people's genome. That's not just science. That's playing God. Lyra met his gaze. We're past ethics, Captain. We're fighting for survival. And what happens if it works? Dren snapped. You create hybrids. What does that mean for them? For us? Ilara, who had been silent until now, spoke up. It means a new beginning. But only if you're willing. Dren clenched his fists. He had spent his life running from responsibility. Failed colonies, lost crews. Now, the fate of an entire species rested on his choice. Lyra stepped closer. We don't have time for doubt. The next generation of Crithians is already being born weaker. In 10 years, there won't be a next generation. Dren exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Fine, but on one condition. What? I see the process, every step. No secrets. Lyra nodded. Agreed. The first attempt. The Nexus chamber hummed to life, its organic machinery pulsing as Dren lay on the central platform. Ilara adjusted the neural links, while Yevra monitored the genetic alignment. Lyra hesitated before activating the sequence. This will connect you to the Nexus. You may feel disoriented. Dren smirked weakly. Worse than a hangover. She didn't smile. Worse. The machine flared to life. A searing pain ripped through Dren's nerves. His DNA was being unwoven, strand by strand. He gasped, his vision widening out. Then, images. A Crithian child laughing. A dying star. A voice whispering, "You are the bridge." And then, error. The machine shrieked. Alarms blared. Lyra lunged for the controls. Abort. Now. The Nexus spat Dren out like a rejected offering. He collapsed, coughing blood. Ilara rushed to him. Vitals unstable. What the hell happened? Yevra's face was ashen. The Nexus rejected him. Lyra's hands trembled. No, it didn't reject him. She looked at Dren, realization dawning. It rejected the method. Dren groaned as the medbot stitched the last of the neural burns along his spine. The Nexus chamber's backlash had left him feeling like his DNA had been shredded and hastily reassembled. Lyra stood over him, her violet eyes dark with guilt. I miscalculated. Dren let out a hoarse laugh. Understatement. Ilara tossed a scanner onto the table with a frustrated sigh. The Nexus didn't just reject the sample. It attacked it, like your biology was a threat. Yevra, who had been silently analyzing the data, finally spoke. Because it was. She turned the holoscreen toward them, displaying the genetic clash in brutal detail. Human DNA is aggressive, adaptive. The Nexus interpreted that as an invasion, not a fusion. Lyra's fingers curled into fists. Then we need a buffer, something to ease the integration. Dren sat up, wincing. You mean like a translator? For DNA? Not a translator. Yevra's aged voice dropped lower. A bridge. The prophecy. The archives of Krithis were buried deep beneath the Nexus chamber, a labyrinth of crystalline data stones etched with millennia of knowledge. Lyra led them through the glowing corridors until they reached an ancient terminal. This is where we keep the oldest records, she murmured, brushing dust off the console, including the visions of the first scholars. Ilara frowned. You're looking for a prophecy. I thought we were doing science. On Krithis, the two are often the same, Yevra said dryly. The screen flickered to life, revealing a holographic scroll. The text was archaic, but one passage pulsed ominously. When the last children fade, the outsiders will come. Their blood is fire, their bonds unbroken. Only through the joining of souls shall life return. Dren crossed his arms. Poetic. Useless, but poetic. Lyra's breath hitched. No, it's not. She turned to him, eyes blazing. The Nexus didn't reject your DNA. It rejected the distance. You were just a sample. A thing to be processed. Realization dawned on Ilara's face. You're saying it needs emotion. Not just emotion. Lyra's voice trembled. A bond. Dren went very still. The neural link. The plan was insanity. To stabilize the fusion, Dren and Lyra would have to undergo a neural sync, a full mind-to-mind connection, used only in Krithian bonding ceremonies. It was intimate, dangerous, and their only shot. You're sure this will work? Dren asked as the technicians prepared the link. Lyra avoided his gaze. No. He barked a laugh. Honesty. Refreshing. The sync chamber was circular, its walls lined with pulsating biotech. They sat facing each other, close enough that Dren could see the flecks of silver in Lyra's irises. This will invade your thoughts, she warned. Your memories. There's no shielding. Dren smirked. Don't worry, Doc. I don't have anything interesting in here. The machine activated. The shared mind. Pain. Dren's childhood. A dying colony, his mother's last breath. Lyra's grief. A sister lost to the fertility collapse, her body too weak to survive birth. Pride. His first command. Her first breakthrough. Fear. The weight of failure. The terror of extinction. And then, something else. A flicker of heat, a pulse of want. Lyra's breath caught as the sensation echoed between them, amplified by the link. Dren's fingers twitched toward hers. The Nexus chamber roared to life around them, reacting to the connection. Now, Yevra shouted. Ilara triggered the sequence. Human and Krithian DNA spiraled together, not as invaders, but as partners. The machine screamed. The world went white. The first hybrid. When the light faded, Dren was on his knees, gasping. Lyra slumped against him, her skin fever-hot. Ilara rushed to the monitor. It's stable. It's stable. On the screen, a single hybrid cell pulsed with life. Yevra's hands shook as she whispered, the first Krithian human embryo. Dren looked at Lyra, really looked. Her pupils were blown wide, her lips parted. The neural link had faded, but something lingered. A bond, a promise, a future. The hybrid embryo pulsed with eerie light inside its incubation pod, its cellular structure flickering between human and Krithian genetic patterns. Dr. Lyra Vale pressed her palm against the glass, her breath fogging the surface. It's unstable, she murmured. Ilara Voss adjusted the bio-readouts, her brow furrowed. The fusion worked, but the embryo's cellular cohesion is degrading. At this rate, it won't survive the night. Across the lab, Captain Dren Marth paced like a caged animal, his boots leaving scuff marks on the polished floor. 3 days had passed since the neural sync. 3 days since he'd felt Lyra's memories woven into his own. The intimacy of it still burned in his veins. "There has to be something we missed," he growled. High Scholar Yevra studied the ancient texts scrolling across her holoscreen. "The Nexus demands balance. We gave it genetic material. We gave it emotional resonance. But we forgot the third element." Lyra turned. "Which is?" "Sacrifice. The blood price." The chamber fell silent. Dren's stomach dropped. "What kind of sacrifice?" Yevra's aged fingers traced an illuminated passage in the holographic text. "The first Crithian hybrids were born during the Great Famine. Their parents didn't just share DNA. They shared life force." Ilara's eyes widened. "You're talking about a direct biological transfer. That's suicide," Dren finished. His gaze locked onto Lyra. "You knew about this." Lyra's throat worked. "I suspected. The old texts were unclear." "You suspected." Dren's voice cracked like a whip. He grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the others. "You were going to kill yourself for this." Her eyes blazed. "If it saves my people." "Yes." The raw conviction in her voice struck him like a physical blow. He'd seen this same self-destructive devotion in her memories. The sister she couldn't save, the years spent chasing impossible cures. Dren exhaled sharply. "There's another way." "The choice." "You can't be serious." Ilara's scanner clattered to the floor. "A bilateral neural sync while the embryo is developing. That's never been attempted." Dren ignored her, stripping off his jacket. The scars from the first procedure still laced his torso. "The Nexus needs a sustained connection. We give it one." Lyra shook her head. "The strain would be catastrophic. Your nervous system can take it." He stepped into the incubation chamber, the glass door hissing shut behind him. The hybrid embryo floated inches from his face, its unstable cells flickering like dying stars. "We do this together, all the way." Lyra's hands trembled as she programmed the sequence. "If we lose synchronization for even a second, then we die screaming." Dren managed to grin. But what a way to go. The dive. The pain was immediate. White-hot needles of energy lanced through Dren's skull as the neural sync engaged at full intensity. Across from him, Lyra arched in her restraint harness, a silent scream on her lips. The world dissolved. Memories flooded between them. A young Dren watching his colony burn, the smell of charred flesh. Lyra holding her stillborn niece, the tiny body cold as space. The first time they'd argued. The spark of frustration that wasn't entirely professional. The unspoken attraction simmering beneath every glance. The Nexus chamber shuddered, its organic walls pulsing in time with their racing hearts. The hybrid embryo glowed brighter, its cells stabilizing as it fed on their shared consciousness. "It's working." Ilara's voice sounded distant, but something was wrong. Dren felt it first, a tearing sensation in his chest. Lyra gasped as the same pain ripped through her. The embryo wasn't just stabilizing. It was taking too much. The edge of death. Warning sirens wailed. Cardiac arrest imminent. Ilara slammed emergency protocols. "We need to abort." Yevra gripped the console. "If we stop now, the embryo dies." Dren's vision darkened at the edges. Through the haze, he saw Lyra reaching for him, her fingers straining against the energy field separating them. The answer came to him in a flash, not from science, but from the sync itself. The embryo needed balance, not just their minds, their bodies. With the last of his strength, Dren smashed the emergency release. The glass shattered. He grabbed Lyra's wrist and pulled, dragging her into his pod as alarms screamed around them. Skin to skin, breath to breath. The embryo flared like a supernova and stabilized. The aftermath. Dren woke to antiseptic lights and the steady beep of a heart monitor. His entire body felt like it had been run through a starship engine. Lyra slept beside him, her silver-streaked hair fanned across the pillow. Their hands were interlaced, IV lines tethering them to the same life support unit. Ilara appeared in his blurry vision. "Don't try to speak. You flatlined for 37 seconds. He croaked out a single word. "Embryo." A smile broke across her face. Stable. Growing. And perfect. Dren's eyes drifted shut. Somewhere in the sink, he'd felt it. The first flicker of the hybrid's consciousness. Not just Crithian. Not just human. Something new. And as Lyra's fingers tightened unconsciously around his, he knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The first cry of the hybrid child echoed through the sterile walls of the incubation ward, a sound no Crithian had heard in generations. Lyra stood frozen, her hands pressed against the observation glass. The infant's skin shimmered with an opalescent sheen, its tiny fingers flexing as it wailed. Human eyes. Crithian markings. Alive. Behind her, Dren leaned heavily on a crutch, his body still recovering from the neural burnout. "Well," he rasped, "we did it." Ilara wiped tears from her cheeks as she adjusted the incubator's biofeeds. Vitals optimal. Cellular cohesion holding at 98%. She's perfect. She. The word sent a shiver through Lyra. This was no experiment anymore. This was a person. Yevra approached slowly, her aged fingers tracing the child's name etched into the pod. Kellis. Ancient Crithian for New Dawn. Then the alarms blared. The coup. Red emergency lights flooded the corridor as armed Crithian guards stormed the ward. At their head strode Elder Korvax, his ceremonial robes billowing like storm clouds. "Heresy," he thundered. "This abomination must be purged." Dren moved instinctively, positioning himself between Korvax and the incubator. "Back off." His voice was steel. Korvax's lip curled. "You think your human defiance matters? That thing is an insult to our purity." He raised a skeletal hand. "Destroy it." The guards advanced, then froze as the entire facility shuddered. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, bioluminescent veins flaring crimson. Lyra gasped. "The Nexus. It's reacting." The awakening. Kellis's cries grew louder, her tiny body glowing brighter with each wail. The incubation pod cracked, fissures spreading like spiderwebs. "No." Ilara lunged forward, too late. The glass exploded outward in a shower of crystalline shards. But instead of collapsing, the infant floated, suspended in a cocoon of golden energy. Korvax stumbled back. "Impossible." Lyra understood first. She's not just hybrid. She's connected. The Nexus chamber had chosen its champion. The reckoning. Chaos erupted. Kellis's energy wave sent Korvax's guards crashing to their knees. The Elder himself clutched his chest as his own augmented biology rebelled, ancient implants sparking. "You tricked the sacred systems," he choked out. Dren grabbed Korvax's robe. "No, you did." He yanked the Elder toward a holographic recorder. "Play the archives. Year 14,712. The projection revealed Korvax altering the Nexus protocols decades ago, intentionally crippling Crithian fertility to maintain his dynasty's power. The surviving guards lowered their weapons in horror. The celebration. 3 months later, the capital city gleamed under twin suns. Thousands gathered in the bioluminescent gardens where Kellis, now healthy and growing at an astonishing rate, giggled as she made flowers bloom with a touch. Dren watched from the terrace, his neural scars finally fading. "She's gonna be trouble." Lyra leaned into him, their shoulders brushing. "We'll manage." The unspoken we hung between them, heavy with promise. Yevra approached, her once stoic face softened. "The first 10 hybrid pregnancies are progressing perfectly, thanks to you both. We will endure." As the crowd cheered below, Dren turned to Lyra. No sync needed now. The understanding passed between them in a glance. Some bonds went deeper than DNA. Epilogue. 1 year later. The transmission from Earth arrived at dawn. Captain Marth, your request for permanent colony status is approved. Welcome to the United Federation. Lyra tightened her grip on Callus's tiny hand as their new home's sun rose, a golden horizon stretching endlessly before them. Human, Crithian, hybrid, together, E&D.